My name is Logan Pierce. I'm 34, an interior designer who carved his own path in Nashville, Tennessee. No trust funds. No family shortcuts. Just years of caffeine, paint fumes, and too many nights spent sketching until sunrise. When people see my work now, the polished hotel lobbies, the sleek office spaces, the warm lighting that feels effortless, they think it's always been easy. They don't see the ramen dinners, the rent I could barely pay, or the endless revisions that made me question if I was good enough. That Tuesday night was supposed to be quiet. Just me, some sketches, and an open bottle of cheap whiskey. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. 6 words. Don't call or come over. We're done. At first, I thought maybe she'd sent it by accident. But no, that was wishful thinking. The words were deliberate, final, ice cold. The kind of message you can't misread no matter how hard you try. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My stomach dropped, my fingers froze. Years of giving, helping, forgiving, all gone in a single text bubble. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just typed 2 words back. Got it. And that was the end of it. At least, that's what I thought. By midnight, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls. Voicemails. Texts piling up faster than I could ignore them. Mom. Dad. Caleb, my younger brother. Their names flashing again and again like an alarm I refused to answer. I knew exactly why they were panicking. It wasn't because they missed me. It was because they realized something. For the first time in years, I wasn't coming to save them. You see, I'd been their safety net since my 20s. When Mom got sick and her medical bills skyrocketed, I paid them. When Dad's restaurant chain started sinking, I covered his payroll, just for 1 month. When Caleb's latest business idea exploded in debt, I bailed him out. Over and over. Tens of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of hours. And not one thank you that sounded like it meant something. They always said, "You're doing so well, Logan," like success meant I owed them. And I believed it because that's what family does, right? They help each other. Except in our family, help was a one-way street. That text from Mom hit me like a mirror shattering. Not because it hurt, but because it finally made sense. All those years I'd been giving, they hadn't been love. They were transactions disguised as care. So I set my phone down and whispered to myself, enough. Growing up, we looked like a postcard family. Dad, Frank Pierce, was a small-town legend, the man who built an empire out of pancakes, as the papers used to say. He started with one diner, then opened another until Pierce Family Restaurants became a local brand. He was proud, stubborn, and convinced that business was the only thing that defined worth. Mom, Diane, was his shadow and his glue. She quit her insurance job to support his dream, which really meant managing his temper and pretending everything was fine. And then there was Caleb, 4 years younger. The golden boy. The heir apparent. He could spill a milkshake on a customer and Dad would laugh, saying, "He's just learning." Me? I was the odd one out, the son who preferred sketching floor plans instead of flipping burgers. While Caleb was learning the business, I was dreaming of textures, colors, and light. I didn't fit the family mold, and in our house, that made me a disappointment. At 17, I got accepted into an art and design school in Chicago. When I told Dad, he looked up from his ledger and laughed. "You're on your own, then. No tuition, no support." Mom didn't say a word, she just avoided eye contact, as if silence could hide her approval of his cruelty. Caleb smirked like it was some victory he didn't earn. So I packed a suitcase and left. Chicago was cold and unforgiving, but it taught me resilience. I waited tables during the day, tutored art students at night, and slept maybe 5 hours on a good week. I paid my way through every semester with blistered hands and sheer stubbornness. Dad never called. Mom texted twice a month, short updates, no warmth. Caleb? Nothing. When graduation day came, I didn't invite them. I walked across that stage alone, holding a diploma ID bought with exhaustion and pride. After college, I came back to Nashville, not for them, but for me. I rented a small studio above a bakery. The smell of cinnamon rolls became my alarm clock. I printed a sign, taped it to a glass door, and wrote in bold letters, Pierceform Studio. That was the beginning. Clients were scarce. I took on tiny cafe redesigns, worked 16-hour days, sometimes paid rent late. But every finished project brought word of mouth. Every satisfied client became my next stepping stone. I wasn't building just interiors, I was building credibility. By 27, I landed my first major project, a boutique hotel downtown. By 30, my designs were in magazines. Warm minimalism with soul, one article called it. I liked that. It sounded like what I was trying to build in myself. But back home, success didn't matter. To them, I was still the kid who left. Every family dinner was the same. Dad asking when I'd come work with them. Mom bragging about Caleb's future leadership. Caleb cracking jokes about how I just paint walls. I smiled, nodded, and quietly counted down the minutes until I could leave. That was the thing about my family. They never realized I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I was chasing peace. Success doesn't come all at once. It's not fireworks and applause, it's quiet, like the moment you realize the noise in your head has finally stopped. 5 years after launching Pierceform Studio, I could finally breathe. I had a small but talented team, steady clients, and a rhythm that made sense. The studio had become my home. We worked late, laughed often, and built things that mattered. Every project was personal, every space told a story. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving, I was living. Then the phone rang. Mom's voice was shaky, but she tried to sound calm. She'd been sick for a while, nothing serious, she said. But she needed a little help. When I pressed for details, the truth spilled out. Her condition was worse than she'd admitted. The treatments, surgeries, and medication would cost tens of thousands. Dad's restaurants weren't doing well. Inflation had crushed their profits, and had refused to modernize. Pride was his poison and his excuse. I told Mom not to worry. The next morning, I wired the money. Not a loan, not a conversation, just action. That night, she texted. Thank you, Logan. 2 words. Cold. Transactional. No call. No, I love you. Just a thank you that sounded like a receipt. Still, I told myself it was fine. I wasn't doing it for gratitude. I was doing it because it was right. Then came Caleb. Had started what he called a gourmet food truck, which was really just an expensive trailer with branding he couldn't afford. 6 months in, he was buried in debt. He called it bad luck. I called it bad math. Dad called me one night, his voice clipped and formal, his business voice. Your brother's in a bind. He needs help. Think of it as an investment in the family. Translation, fix it for us. I wired $30,000 to clear his debt. A month later, another $20,000 to help the restaurant stay open. And what did I get in return? At the next family barbecue, Caleb bragged about how he'd turned things around. Dad clapped him on the back, proud as ever. Mom beamed like her little boy had just saved the world. I stood there with a paper plate and a hollow smile. No one mentioned my name. After that, it became a routine. Every few months, another call. Another emergency. The oven broke. The supplier's late. We're short on payroll. I sent the money without hesitation. I kept a spreadsheet not to track, but to remind myself how much I'd sacrificed. By the time I hit 32, the total was staggering, over $300,000. $300,000. That could have bought me a home. It could have funded a new studio, or allowed me to take a year off. Instead, it vanished into their chaos. And still, it was never enough. Dad would call saying, "You're doing well, son. Just one more time. We'll pay you back." He never did. He never intended to. And every time I helped, I told myself, maybe this will be the moment they finally see me. But they didn't. Because people who see you as a resource never see you as a person. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday. ID sent another payment, this time for restaurant equipment. Later that week, I called Mom to check on her. She answered but sounded distracted. When I mentioned the new project my studio had landed a 5-star hotel renovation, she said, "That's nice, honey. But Caleb's been working really hard lately. He might open another restaurant soon." Her words landed like glass in my chest. That was the moment I realized something ugly. No matter how much I gave, I'd always be invisible. I was the background noise to their favorite song, the melody they couldn't hear because they were too busy praising the lead singer. From then on, every transfer felt heavier. Not because I didn't want to help, but because I knew it didn't matter. I wasn't saving them, I was enabling them. Dad's voice had shifted from asking to expecting. Mom's texts were shorter, colder. Caleb barely spoke unless he needed something. The family that used to brag about loyalty now treated me like an ATM with a pulse. One night, I got a call from Dad again. "We're short this month," he said. "You're doing fine. Help your family." I almost said yes out of habit, but something in me snapped. "No," I said. Silence. Then he said it. "You're selfish, Logan. After everything we've done for you." I hung up. Not angrily, quietly. That word selfish echoed for hours. It used to crush me, now it clarified everything. They didn't want me to succeed. They wanted me to stay useful. From that night on, I decided something simple. I'd still love them, but I'd stop financing their comfort. I stopped taking guilt calls. Stopped explaining my choices. Stopped justifying my success. It felt strange at first, like quitting an addiction. But with every day that passed, I could breathe easier. Sometimes freedom doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in silence, when you finally stop answering the phone. 5 years into running my design studio, I'd built something solid. Not flashy, not global, but respected. I had a small team, clients who trusted me, and a steady stream of projects that finally let me sleep without worrying about rent. And yet, I wanted more, not in money, but in meaning. I wanted to design with purpose. That's how Pierceform Earth was born. It started as a simple idea. What if we could make beautiful spaces without destroying the planet? Use reclaimed wood, local materials, and energy-efficient lighting. Design for comfort and conscience. I spent months developing the business plan. Research. Projections. Cost breakdowns. I even had 3 boutique hotels interested in sustainable redesigns if I could scale my team. All I needed was capital. For once, I thought my family might actually see me as an equal, not as the guy who bailed them out, but as someone worth betting on. So, one Sunday afternoon, I invited them to dinner. I wanted it to feel professional, serious. I printed the presentation, prepped the slides, even practiced the pitch in front of the mirror like an idiot. When they arrived, I greeted them with hope disguised as calm. Dad sat at the head of the table, arms crossed. Mom was fussing with napkins like she always did when things got tense. Caleb scrolled through his phone. And his wife, Maya, smiled politely, clearly sensing the tension. I took a breath and started. "I've been working on something new, a sustainable design branch under Pierceform. ITLL focus on hotels and restaurants using eco-friendly materials. The numbers show it's a growing market. I just need an investment to scale." Dad cut me off mid-sentence. "How much?" $200,000, I said. "And they'll pay it back with interest. This isn't a favor, it's a business opportunity." He leaned back, smirking. So you want us to throw 200 grand at recycled furniture? Logan, hotels want cheap, not green. I clicked to the next slide, showing projected returns and client interest. Actually, sustainability's becoming a standard, not a trend. If we start now, we can lead the market. Caleb looked up just long enough to snort. Sounds like a fancy way to waste money. You should just stick to decorating people's houses. The words hit harder than I expected. Mom stayed quiet, still rearranging napkins like she could fix the discomfort by folding it neatly. I turned to her, desperate for 1 ounce of support. Mom, you've seen my work. You know I can do this. She hesitated. It's just risky, sweetheart. Your father's right. The restaurants are what we know. The air left my lungs. This wasn't about risk, it was about control. No matter how successful I became, I was never the one they'd believe in. Then Maya spoke. Actually, I think it's a great idea, she said softly. People are starting to care about sustainability. It could do really well. For the first time that evening, I felt seen. But then Caleb shot her a look, the kind that says shut up. She fell silent, eyes down. Dad waved his hand. We're not funding this nonsense. Caleb's working on expanding our new restaurant location. That's where our focus is. Caleb smirked again. It wasn't about business anymore, it was about dominance. I closed my laptop slowly. This isn't nonsense, Dad. It's innovation. You just can't see past your own blueprint. You chose your path, he said, voice firm. The family business comes first. No, I said. Your business comes first. You never wanted mine to exist. The room froze. Mom looked up, eyes wet. Logan, please don't start this. Start what? Telling the truth? I stood up, my voice steady but trembling underneath. I've given this family hundreds of thousands of dollars. Paid for Mom's treatments. Covered Caleb's debts. Bought your damn restaurant equipment. And you still look at me like I'm the screw-up. No one said a word. Mom fiddled with her necklace, Dad clenched his jaw, Caleb stared at the table. Finally, Dad muttered. You'll regret walking away from your family. No, I said. I'll regret never doing it sooner. I grabbed my bag and walked out. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the presentation on my screen. Graphs, forecasts, the dream I'd poured myself into. All of it, dismissed in 10 minutes by people who'd never believed in me. But instead of feeling crushed, I felt something unexpected: clarity. I realized I'd spent years trying to earn a seat at their table, when I could have been building my own. That night, I made a decision. I'd stop chasing validation and start chasing vision. If they couldn't see my worth, that was their loss. Because one day, they'd have to watch from the sidelines while I built something they couldn't destroy. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the outcast. I felt like the architect of my own freedom. Days passed after that failed dinner, but the silence didn't feel peaceful, it felt loaded. Like the calm before a storm I already knew was coming. I buried myself in work, sketching late into the night, convincing myself I was fine. But inside, I was waiting for the next inevitable explosion. It came sooner than I thought. One morning, as I was reviewing project drafts, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. Don't call or come over. We're done. Again. Same words as before. No punctuation, no warmth. Just 6 syllables that said everything. This time, I didn't freeze. I didn't second guess. I just read it once, sighed, and typed back. Got it. And then I did something that, for years, I'd been too scared to do. I opened my banking app. Line by line, I began cutting the cords that had kept me tied to them. Mom's medical payments canceled. Caleb's loans gone. Restaurant utility accounts erased. In 5 minutes, I undid 5 years of financial bondage. And when I finished, I felt something I hadn't felt in ages: weightless. For a second, guilt tried to whisper. "You're abandoning them," it said. But another voice, calmer, clearer, answered back. "No, you're saving yourself." That night, my phone turned into a war zone. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts coming in like a flood. ID finally stopped blocking. Mom. Dad. Caleb. They weren't reaching out to talk, they were panicking. Because they'd realized what I'd done. The lifeline was gone. The first voicemail was from Caleb, his voice shaking with anger. "You think you can just walk away from us? You're selfish, man. You're leaving us to drown." I almost laughed. Selfish, that word again. The family anthem, apparently. Then another message, colder. "You'll regret this. Well, take legal action if we have to." Legal action against the Brotherhood saved them countless times. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Next came Mom's texts. "How could you do this to me? After everything I've been through, you're abandoning your mother. I raised you better than this." Each message hit like a manipulation dressed as guilt. There was no love in them, just control. And I saw it clearly this time. I didn't respond. Not to a single one. At 1:07 a.m., Dad called. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail. "Logan, you need to fix this. The restaurants can't survive without your help. You owe us that much." Oh. That word broke something inside me. I replayed it once, then deleted it. I didn't need the reminder. I already knew who they were. The next morning, I woke up to another round of chaos. Caleb again, blaming me for tearing the family apart. Mom again, now pleading. "Please, Logan. We're family. You can't turn your back on us." But family doesn't write you off when you stop paying their bills. Family doesn't make love conditional. So I stayed silent. Every buzz from my phone felt weaker, more distant, like static from a life I no longer lived in. By the third day, I started to feel something new: peace. A week later, a text came from Dad. "Meet us at the cafe on Main. Tomorrow at 3. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. I almost ignored it. But something inside me wanted closure, not for them, but for me. So I went. The cafe was small, half empty, the smell of burnt coffee and tension thick in the air. They were already there: Dad, Mom, and Caleb sitting at the corner table like a tribunal. Maya wasn't with them. I walked in, calm. I'd already decided, this wasn't a reconciliation. It was a goodbye. Dad started first, voice clipped and cold. "You've put this family in a terrible position. Your mother's health, the restaurants, everything's on the edge." I sat down across from him, folded my hands, and said evenly, "I've been holding this family together for years. Every crisis, every debt, every unpaid bill, I covered it. And not once did anyone thank me." He narrowed his eyes. "Watch your tone." "Why? You've never watched yours." Caleb leaned back, smirking. "Here we go again. Poor Logan, the victim." "No," I said. "Not a victim. Just done being your insurance policy." Dad slammed his palm on the table. "Enough. You don't talk to your father like that. Then maybe you should have acted like one." The silence that followed was suffocating. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't sure if they were real. For once, she didn't interrupt. Then I said it, the truth I'd been holding for months. "Maya told me the truth, Caleb. You've been stealing from the restaurants. Skimming money, hiding accounts. That's why they're failing." The air froze. Dad turned slowly toward Caleb. "What?" Caleb stammered. "She's lying. You're lying. You're just trying to turn them against me." But Mom's face gave it away, the panic, the recognition. She knew. Maybe not the details, but enough. You knew, I said softly. You've known something was off for a long time. She didn't deny it. Her silence was an answer. Dad finally spoke, his voice sharp and tired. Even if it's true, he's still your brother. And I'm still your son, I said. But that's never mattered, has it? The words hung in the air like smoke. For the first time in my life, they had nothing to say. Mom reached out across the table, her hand trembling. Logan, please. Don't walk away. We can fix this. I shook my head. No, Mom. You can't fix something you refuse to see. You didn't lose me, you gave me away, piece by piece, every time you chose silence over fairness. Dad's expression hardened. You'll regret this one day. I stood. Maybe. But regret's lighter than resentment. And I left. The bell over the cafe door chimed as I walked out. The sound small but final, like a punctuation mark at the end of a long, unfinished sentence. A year later, everything collapsed. The restaurants went bankrupt. Caleb was sued by suppliers when his fake accounts came to light. Maya left him, moved to Atlanta, and started fresh. Mom and Dad sold their house and disappeared from the Nashville scene. And me? Pierce Form Earth took off. A national firm bought the concept for nearly $1 million. And I used that money to expand new offices in Dallas and Denver. A small team of designers who shared my vision. For the first time, success felt clean. Not an apology. Not proof. Just peace. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that text. Don't call or come over. We're done. It used to sting. Now, it makes me smile. Because that was the moment I stopped trying to earn my place in a family that never saw my value. That message wasn't rejection. It was release. I learned something in the wreckage of it all. You can pour your soul into people who only see you as a resource. And they'll call you selfish when you stop giving. But you're not selfish for saving yourself. You don't owe anyone your peace. Not even your parents. Not even your blood. Love without respect is just control wearing a disguise. And sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's evolution. So if you're hearing this and you've ever been made to feel guilty for choosing yourself, stop apologizing. You don't have to burn just to keep others warm. Thank you for staying with me through my story. If these words touched you, if they stirred something in you or made you reflect on your own journey, I ask only 3 small things. Like the video so others can find it. Leave a comment, share your story, or simply tell me what struck you the hardest. Subscribe because more stories are coming, and you won't want to miss what's ahead.